I choked. I panicked. I think that's a discussion that we should keep going, though, is this whole Patriots scandal. And I think another interesting thing to look at is Bill Belichick is revered as one of these amazingly talented coaches. Best coach ever is what everybody says. And when you look at the wins and the Super Bowl wins, it's hard not to say that. But he's being touted by the NFL. He's on all these NFL 100 videos. At what point does this start to taint his legacy?
I think it already has to most people who aren't either Patriots fans or in the national media. Because I feel like, in general, national media, for whatever reason, is just trying to make excuses. And trying to say, oh, it's not that big a deal because, well, it's the Bengals. Or, well, it's not that big a deal because how much of an advantage can they really gain from what they did? But that's not the point. The point is, they have continuously and repeatedly done things that are outside of the rules to the point where I have no choice but to look at it and say, okay, I assume you cheat all the time, 100% of the time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You live to cheat. Occasionally you get caught. Which makes me think, because they've only been caught a handful of times, and they've won 6 Super Bowls with Bill Belichick, they're probably good cheaters. And so then it's irritating because it's hard to figure out precisely how much of it has an impact. Like, I heard some callers on a radio show the other day, and they were trying to say, well, if you determine that Bill Belichick's a cheater, how many Super Bowls would he have won if he never cheated? And the answer is, we have no idea.
That's a good point.
Would he have won 4? Would he still have won all 6? Is it possible that he's cheating because he thinks it gives him an advantage, but it doesn't really give him as much of an advantage as we would all believe that it might, and he still would have won 6 Super Bowls? I honestly don't know the answer to it, but I do know that, to me it's similar to the way that we look at steroids in baseball.
Yeah.
Like, obviously people accomplished great things during the steroid era in baseball, and the thing that everyone always says is, well, everybody was using steroids and everybody was cheating. And then other people come out and say, that's really not true.
Yeah.
But you don't know, like, how do you measure Barry Bonds' stats against someone else's stats that doesn't have speculation of steroids? How do you measure Bill Belichick against other great coaches? Because his resume is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And
huge.
Could you say you cheated your way to 6 Super Bowls, or 2 Super Bowls, or 4 Super Bowls, and we can't really quantify it?
Yeah.
All I know is he's a cheater.
Yeah. And I think one of the interesting things that this brings out is if you're cheating against the Bengals, a team that you shouldn't have to cheat against,
yeah.
Like, what does that say? Like, if you're pulling it out, like, oh, in the Super Bowl game, with the Seahawks, there was allegations that they had people at Seahawks practice and stuff like that going on. I mean, that makes more sense. Like, oh, we're playing this really good team. We better try and get every advantage. But if you're trying to get every advantage like that against the Bengals, I mean, I gotta think that it's an every game thing.
Yeah.
Like, you're trying to do it every game against whoever, no matter what, because that's what you think the advantage is. You need to win against anybody.
And often, I mean, we've heard it said too on, SportsCenter, ESPN, whatever, that people from inside the NFL say, well, when we go to play at New England, we know something's going to happen. Like, our headsets are going to go out, or there's going to be something that's controlled by the Patriots organization that's going to give them an edge throughout the course of the game. Like, little stuff.
Yeah.
Which, all of that just plays into this whole, I think they're just constantly cheating, and they just decided, well, we don't get caught that often, so we might as well just go for it. But I don't know that it automatically tarnishes all the accomplishments.
Yeah. I know that Peyton Manning was paranoid whenever he was playing against the Patriots. I've heard stories where he was like so paranoid that he didn't want to talk about what they were going to do at halftime or before the game because he assumed that the Patriots could hear everything they were talking about.
Right. And he wasn't the only one who felt that way.
Exactly.
And it was based on things that happened during the game that people felt like, hey, we're going to play in Foxborough. This is what's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting discussion. I don't think it'll end. I don't think it'll end even if we hear if there is a punishment or if there isn't a punishment. I think this is a discussion that should follow around Bill Belichick and his legacy until even after he retires, because this is something that's that important. Like, you are touted as the best coach ever, and so if you have something like this that goes along with it, I mean, like you said, Barry Bonds can't even get into the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
Barry Bonds, the best hitter of all time is not in the Baseball Hall of Fame because he was a cheating cheater who cheated when, yeah, sure, there was a ton of people in that era who was. I mean, you look at all of the different guys who are having trouble getting into the Hall of Fame, there's so many more that, they weren't already really good, so it didn't explode their stats as much. Getting that advantage of taking steroids, they still weren't that great of a hitter. But Barry Bonds was one of the best hitters in the league before he juiced up and got massive and, his head swole to the size of a pumpkin.
Yeah.
And so if that's still following him around, I don't understand why it's so much less so when you're talking about other ways of cheating.
Right. And it's not exactly apples to apples,
No,
but it's
of course not.
at least if we're trying to draw a comparison of
But that
someone
is
who
the
was really
comparison.
great at something.
But that's the comparison of,
Yeah.
greatest hitter of all time
Yeah,
when you look at
exactly.
his numbers to greatest coach of all time. That's the comparison I'm making. I understand that it's not quite perfect.
Yeah.
But it's similar in my mind.
I believe that Bill Belichick is a really great coach.
Oh.
I believe
so.
he may be the greatest coach of all time. I believe there's a pretty good chance that he's still winning 6 Super Bowls, whether they have Spygate or Deflategate or anything. Because even with Deflategate, I think there is significant evidence that it gives you an advantage. Not only that Tom Brady was more comfortable with the ball at the level that it was inflated, but also, I think it was Andrew who had brought some stats about how the Patriots basically never fumbled, and they had a better and easier time hanging on to the ball when they were running with it. But at the same time, they were still really good after Deflategate, and I'm going to assume that probably there's been a little more security on that. I don't know. Is that fair? Is that a fair assumption?
Probably not.
No?
I don't know. I think you're probably right on that. I mean, personally, my argument is always that I think that Belichick's the engine that makes that team run, not Tom Brady.
Mhm.
And I always kind of root for something to show that, another quarterback comes in. I wish they would have, gone with Jimmy Garoppolo or something to see what they could have done with a different quarterback because, I don't know. I think that would be interesting
was
because
amazing for most of a season, wasn't he? Brissett was amazing for
Matt Castle was the quarterback.
Oh, was it Castle?
Yeah.
And he led him to an 11-5 record.
Yeah.
Oh, Brissett just had 4 games.
Yeah.
Also
And
was
I don't
amazing.
even think it was
and
even
he
4 whole games because
Oh,
that
okay.
was for the Brady suspension, and I think Brissett got hurt
Yeah, I think
during
so.
that, so I think he played.
So
They played well. They had 4 wins, I believe.
But
After that
Brissett
stretch,
might
but-
still be good. We know Castle's not good, so the
That's a
point's
good-
even stronger.
That's a good point.
And Castle was good. He had good stats that season, and even more importantly, they still won. They missed the playoffs at 11-5, but they won 11 games that year.
Yeah. Which is bizarre that they missed the playoffs.
Yeah.
Knowing the division that they play in,
Yeah, it's
that was
pretty crazy.
that was a weird year.
If
Yeah.
everything falls just right in the NFC, couldn't that happen this year?
You mean
What's-
the AFC?
Yes.
No, in the NFC. What's the Rams record?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Because they might have 6 losses now, so maybe it couldn't quite. But going into this week, I remember looking at it thinking, man, if all these good teams have really good finishes,
Yeah.
we could end up with a Rams team at 11-5 and missing the playoffs because the Vikings, some combination of Vikings, Seahawks, 49ers beat them out for the wild card spots.
Yeah. And then we'd also probably have a 7-9 NFC East team.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be
Now,
awesome.
I mean, the winner of the NFC East is probably going to be 9-7 because you have that head-to-head Dallas-Philadelphia game, so that'll be 8 wins.
Sadly.
And then I don't
They
remember
could
which
tie.
one is which, but one of them's playing the Redskins to end the year, and one of them's playing the Giants.
We're both also trash.
Exactly. So assuming whichever team wins that matchup
But
between
what if
Dallas
they
and
lost
Philadelphia,
to the Redskins and the Giants going
would
down?
it be that shocking? I don't
No.
think it would, and
No.
it really probably wouldn't matter at that point because
Yeah.
whoever wins that game next week is going to take the division.
That's the
Oh, that
best.
would be amazing.